Okay, I'm unmuted. Right, are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so we met in Costa Rica, and we were both trying to find a good place, right, away from all the cell towers. We were like the tinfoil hat freaks of Costa Rica, trying to get away from all the radiation, right? And then we met, and you said that you'd been working with Stetzer, right, on the dirty electricity and everything like that. And I think I introduced Carly to a side of health that she hadn't been aware of before. And it's something I've been studying for about probably about 6 years now. So I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2015, Valentine's Day. I actually started my love-hate relationship with autoimmune disease. And I'd been suffering before that for about 5 years. So from when I was 16, I started getting really bad symptoms of gut issues, but also depression, autoimmunity. But I didn't get diagnosed for 5 years because they're useless, of course, these doctors. And you guys know what it's like. It's really hard to even find out what's wrong with you. And often you can go down many different avenues, believing that you may be crazy or, different things for years. And so I was just drinking and smoking weed and doing what other 18-year-olds do, but physically I was falling apart. Eventually I actually went onto a vegan diet, and that my girlfriend at the time put me on it for my health, and it actually made me so ill. I actually ended up in hospital 2 weeks later. And the reason is because a lot of the raw foods I was eating were inflaming my gut that was already really inflamed from the Crohn's disease. And they still didn't get it. They thought my appendix had burst. I was in that much pain. They thought my appendix had burst. And so they put cameras into my gut. And then they were like, oh, he's got like an inflamed gut. He's been coming in for 5 years telling us he's got a really bad gut. He's got Crohn's disease. So then they said, right, you have this disease when I woke up, and you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. And you'll probably have to have surgery. And this is just something you have to live with now. For me, well, for all my family around, they were all really upset about that diagnosis and stuff. But for me, it was the best day of my life, I think, because it actually vindicated that I wasn't insane. It was like there's something tangible that is wrong with me biologically, and I can fix this. And so within about 6 months, I just dived into the research. It was actually the Joe Rogan podcast that started me off. And I went and deep dived into like supplements and health and diet, and I was trying everything. I think I was spending like £1,000 a month on supplements and food and smoothies and organic this, and my whole family thought I'd lost the plot, but I was feeling better. And I actually enrolled on a nutritional therapy course to study naturopathic medicine. And it was there that I met a guy called Elliot Overton, who is my age, and he's one of my friends. And he introduced me to several bits of research that blew me away. And from there, I kind of learned everything that I know now by following a very special doctor called Dr. Jack Cruz, who I would recommend you all look into after this. So that was like 2015, 2016. And I'd gotten onto like a ketogenic diet. I was doing ice baths. I was fasting a lot. I was biohacking. I was wearing blue blocking glasses because the blue light found was like toxic for us. And I was feeling phenomenal. I went from about, I think you guys measure in pounds, don't you? So I went from about 170 pounds to about 210 pounds of pure muscle. I was just like living like a king. And my gut was completely removed of inflammation. I'd come off medication for Crohn's disease after 6 months, and I've never been back on it ever again. And they told me that within a year, if I did that, I'd need surgery, and that would be impossible. But it's been 7 years now, and I've not been back on it. So then things got really interesting. So then I thought I was the king. So I was like, I've got this health thing down completely. I want to go to London, to the center of London, get a high paid job and start like just living my life. So I went down to London, and within a year, my health completely deteriorated again for the second time. Not in my gut, but this time I developed chronic fatigue and various autoimmune issues, rashes all over my body that I couldn't deal with. I was trying to use the ketogenic diet and the fasting and different stuff to try and different supplements, but nothing was working. I was broken, and I went through hell trying to get out of London, and I had to break up with my girlfriend and leave. And I've been trying to heal that damage that I accrued in London for the last few years. And it led me down a really much deeper, more incredible path than I could have ever imagined. And I'm so glad that happened. But what I found was that it wasn't about food. And this is something that it's quite a hard pill to swallow, and it's quite difficult to conceive, but the whole health world is focused on food. It's on what you're eating that's affecting you. If you eat good stuff, you feel good. If you eat bad stuff, you're going to get disease. But that's not what I experienced. I was on the best diet possible and it worked for me. But then within a year, my environment was different. My diet was the same, but I'd collapse. Like, well, I kept trying to fast more and track my ketones. It didn't matter. I was destroyed. And so this is when I took my red pill, and I realized that health is controlled by light. Light is the most fundamental, I guess, particle or property of the universe we're in. It controls everything, not just your vision, but your entire biology is run by light. And food is light. It's stored light from the sun. That's effectively what it is. And within the light waves from food and different things, we have, it creates a myriad of different effects on the body. And wellness is created by your light environment. It's not created by the food you eat. You can eat as organic as you like, but if your light environment is poor, you won't get better. And it's just a matter of fact. And the reason for this is because inside our bodies, we have something called mitochondria. You've probably heard of these before, like mitochondrial health. These are like tiny little bacteria that merged with a bigger bacteria about 600 million years ago. They merged together, and the big bacteria used these small bacteria, mitochondria, as energy slaves, effectively. And so there's about 3,000 mitochondria within each cell in our body. They generate all the energy we need. They also generate all the free radicals that causes inflammation and disease. So while they're creating energy and ATP for us, they're also constantly creating something called free radicals. And it's effectively oxygen. And it's oxygen missing an electron. And that oxygen molecule is the same thing that you're breathing in. Every second you've been watching me for the last 10 minutes, you've been breathing in oxygen. And the food that you ate for breakfast and all these smoothies, you've been taking the electrons from those smoothies, and you've been using oxygen to pull those electrons down like a membrane that I'll show you in a minute. And at the end, the result is ATP, which is the molecule that we believe gives us energy. We believe. But it also creates water. And the water is the most critical thing in our entire body. 99% of the molecules in our body is water, and our mitochondria make 17,000 liters of it a day. They recycle it constantly. And that is the most critical thing to wellness, making that water and the type of water that's made there, and making sure those mitochondria, those membranes that generate energy, work optimally. Now, in disease, there's a a guy called Douglas Wallace. And I'm wondering if I can like share the screen here. I can do that, right? I can share the screen. I'm just going to show you a little slide from a guy. Dr. Douglas Wallace. I'll leave all these talks on the cheat sheet afterwards, and I can send you all this so you can have a look through all the research and verify what I'm saying is true. But effectively, Doug Wallace found that within these mitochondria, they have their own genome. They only have 37 genes, and those genes are kept away from the nucleus. So the nucleus has 25,000 genes, and these are for all your hair and your eyes, and this is the genome that we're familiar with, that we hear about all the time. But no one ever talks about the mitochondrial genome. They have their own little set, this little ring of DNA. It's only, like I say, 37 genes, and it codes for all the proteins that make this respiration chain, this electron transport chain that makes water and ATP. Doug Wallace has found that when this mitochondrial DNA has mutated, the proteins that go into this structure become defective. And when that happens, we start to generate massive amounts of free radicals. And I don't know if you guys know this, but 95% of the free radicals or the inflammation in your body comes from the mitochondria. I don't know if you know that, like, but they are the heart and soul of all the issues in your body. When you, different autoimmune diseases, I don't know what you guys have, I don't know you guys that well, but all of it stems back to the mitochondria and having defective mitochondria. So we need to figure out, first of all, how did it get to that point and what's making these proteins faulty? And basically, the free radicals themselves actually damage the DNA within the mitochondria. And this occurs over time in a tiny amount. 2 to 3% of your daily respiration will cause this damage. This is called aging. So it happens gradually over 50, 60, 70, 80 years. This oxidation of your mitochondrial DNA will make you less energy efficient. It's why footballers or boxers, they can't box like they could when they were 30, when they're 60. It's mitochondrial, basically mitochondrial aging. That's what's going on. And in disease, effectively, we're seeing an acute, rapid onset of aging within a selective tissue. With autoimmunity, it could be like in the gut for Crohn's, or it could be for rheumatoid arthritis, it could be in the wrists. In cancer in the brain, it's going to be in the mitochondria, specifically in that area. And what we're trying to figure out is what the source of that rapid aging is, and also how we can reverse it. So the biggest things, in my opinion, that increase that mitochondrial heteroplasmy or the mitochondrial mutation rate or that aging process, the biggest things are blue light and artificial light from screens, devices, and LEDs. And the other biggest one is electromagnetic radiation. And the reason is because mitochondria are light sensitive. They're extremely sensitive to different kinds of light. It governs their whole timing process for them to make energy and for them to work optimally. They rely on light frequencies, not food. They don't rely on food signals, they rely on light signals. And if you think about it, if you was a cell on Earth when at the start of time, before any complex life was created, what variables would you have as a cell to go by each day? You'd have a light and dark cycle would be the first thing you'd notice as a cell, right? That it gets dark for 12 hours and it gets bright for 12 hours, and then it gets dark for 12 hours. And so all life on Earth, including all the plants outside you in Costa Rica, including all the animals, are all tuned to light frequencies. We see them, but they also regulate our metabolism. They regulate the body clock in our brain, which governs all bodily processes. And the way that this happens is through light coming through our eye and light hitting our surfaces. So the most critical piece of advice I'd give you is, for the rest of your life, if you want to stay well, get the sunrise and stay as long as possible out in the morning sun, and make it as strong as possible will give you the fastest path to wellness. And this is how I've used the sun in Mexico, where I am now, to reverse Crohn's disease and chronic fatigue and all the autoimmunity that I had for about 5 years ago. And I've done it all using light. And one of the critical things is blue light mitigation. So from screens and devices, they disrupt that whole circadian rhythm, that process of sensing light. We're bathing currently in frequencies that we've never had around us before. We've never had this much technology in our environment. We're a complete experiment. The government and all of the health agencies and environmental protection agencies and big pharma and everybody are completely denying and ignoring the obvious effects and the well-studied effects of electromagnetic radiation and artificial light on our bodies. It's up to you as a person who's responsible for your wellness to ratify if that's really true or not, and really take on the responsibility for your own wellness and start to change the light environment around you. And when you do that, you'll see massive, massive changes to the point where food won't matter anymore. Eventually, if you can use the sun enough, food will become irrelevant. And I suppose a lot of you will have grandparents and great-grandparents who will never have heard of autoimmunity before. Why was it that just 100 years ago, it was like non-existent? Why was it that Crohn's disease first appeared in 1932? That's only 80 years ago. Like, why then? Why not 100 years before? The first time we used electric power grid in this world was in 1893. Within 7 years, we saw the first ever case of Alzheimer's show up ever in medical history. Now it's one of the leading causes of death in the world. How have we gone from several million diabetics to 70 million diabetics in India? They've been eating the same vegetarian diet for the last 3,000 years. Nothing's changed, but their environment has changed enormously. And that's what I guess I'm trying to teach you today, is an introduction to the effect of light and the effect of light on your mitochondria, your ability to make energy, and how that controls how much inflammation you make and how much energy you make. And basically, your disease reversal comes down to energy production. The more energy you can make, the more you can limit those free radicals being produced in the mitochondria, the quicker you'll get well. And I truly believe you can reverse any disease that's ever been. I don't even believe in the term diagnosis and disease. I think you're just in a bad environment. You can reverse everything. It may take time, it may take some extreme measures, but you can do it 1000%. So I guess without taking this too much longer, because there's a hell of a lot more I can go into, but I'm sure you guys' heads have already exploded. I think that I just want to kind of wrap up and give you some key tips to focus on, to take away with you, that are all free. I'm not going to sell you a single supplement. There's nothing that I'm going to sell you at all. I may not ever see you ever again, but I hope that you take these tips away and you research whatever I've said, and I'll give you all the links to do so, and you can find your own path to wellness like I did. So the number one thing I would suggest would be see the sunrise every single day, no matter what. If you can time your eating your breakfast with that, even better, because you synchronize the gut and the brain clocks together. That's something that's a real problem in autoimmune disease, is the circadian rhythm of the gut is out of sync with the one in the brain. They're running at different cycles. So it would be equivalent to, like, you guys probably have jobs, right? Imagine if your CEO was working on a schedule that's 2 weeks behind yours. So you send an email and he gets it 2 weeks later. Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue in the company? That's what's happening when we use blue light and artificial light. We create a huge difference in the synchronicity of the clocks in our tissues. So I don't know where you guys have your diseases or whatever, but effectively those tissues that are giving you problems, their circadian rhythm is off. And the sunrise and the morning sunlight is what resyncs that. And food can do the same thing. So that's why timing of food is more important than what you eat. And breakfast is a high protein breakfast is a real, we got a notification, is a real effective tool to use. So breakfast with sunrise, high protein. The type of food that you should eat should also be high in omega-3. Seafood is the best form of food you can eat. It's got the best mineral composition of any food on the planet, especially oysters, mussels, lobster, crab. There is no better pound for pound food that contains the minerals and the omega-3s that we need to run our brain and to power our cell membranes. Fish is obviously great. Try and avoid farmed. Farmed is really not good. And unfortunately, we are polluting our waters all over the world. So trying to find good quality, good sources, it can be a bit tricky, but I'll let you guys dive down that, and I'm sure you can find some good quality fish. But generally, even if it is a little bit, if the fish may be a little bit toxic, it's still better to get the omega-3 and the minerals than to not have any at all, because the human brain loves seafood. There's nothing better for it. And I like to believe in the idea of, like, if you give the body all the good things it needs, it can fight off any potential little contaminants that might be in our food supply, which are everywhere now. So give yourself what's good, don't avoid what's bad, you know, take that perspective. The other most important thing would be to cut artificial light and your technology at night. If you don't already do this and you don't want to do it, I'd recommend buying some blue blocking glasses. But really, you can't block the light that's coming through to your face and your skin unless you wore a mask, which you could. But I would suggest just cutting tech that's after sunset and just using candlelight or red light. And that brings me to number 3. The next biggest thing you can use is red light therapy. The most obvious one is the sun. The sun is the biggest source of red light we have. It comes up every morning, and at sunrise, at sunset, the red light is the strongest, which is why those 2 parts of the day are the most important. They set the clock and they give us the most red light. And mitochondria love red light. In fact, we've found that the mitochondria can generate ATP without the need for food as long as red light is present. It's an astounding paper that got released about 2 years ago. You can make energy just from red light alone, which is immense. And the other thing I suggest would be getting your vitamin D level as high as possible. I'll share some studies on the cheat sheet, some graphs, showing 4 or 5 studies that show the inverse correlation between vitamin D level and all-cause mortality, which means death by all diseases and death by accident, death by homicide. If your vitamin D is below 20, you're actually more at risk for an accident than someone is, to die by a car crash, than someone who's just got a high vitamin D level. Now, I don't know how you take that, but for me, it's mind-blowing that was an actual real statistic. If I increase my vitamin D, I can avoid all causes of death. Like, how is that even possible? But mainly we want to focus on the fact that the disease risk that you have with a low vitamin D level is like more than a smoker. If your vitamin D level is below 20, you're twice as at risk of death as a smoker. And having a vitamin D of 60 and above is the optimal window. And I'll share with you all the graphs, and I'll give it to Carly, and you can have a look through this. So your vitamin D level, red light, seafood, grounding is also huge. So grounding at the beach. And I think the other biggest one that I'd suggest would be, if you can spend time in bodies of water, especially cold bodies of water, the longer you can spend in them. I don't know if you've heard of Wim Hof or what he does, but if you look at what he's been able to do with his physiology and what he's able to do when they've injected him with toxins that make people sick for 2 weeks, his immune system destroys it. It's like, well, is he just a genetic freak, or is this possible? And you look into his following and all the people that have been following and using his protocols for years. And this is where nature has the polarity of using the cold and the sun. So when nature moves away from the sun, environments get colder and our physiology improves. And you can use both systems. You can use the sun and the cold. I'd highly recommend moving to the tropics. It's a lot nicer than jumping into ice cold water every day. But if you really want to do it in Canada, ice lake swimming and drinking the glacial water from that area is a really, really effective tool for wellness. I prefer to be in Mexico in the sun, but there really is like, the water's not as good here, but the water's amazing up in the poles. Glacial water, like Icelandic glacial water and Voss, amazing waters, and they're really good for you. Down here, the water isn't as good, but we have the sun, and the sun here is so powerful. I mean, I'm out in it all day. If I'm not outside, like I'm planning when I'm gonna get outside. I do everything outside. You don't have to be in direct sunlight all the time, but just having your eyes and skin in the light of the natural light will change your life if you just do that, and it's totally free. I think that's, oh yeah, and probably the final one would be to start researching how you can turn off as many circuits as you can in your house. Cut the circuits, especially at night time. Carly's going to probably do a talk on EMF, or maybe she already has, and go through dirty electricity and ways to hack. That is critical, because your sleep is, like, in your mitochondrial health, are extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. And the reason is because mitochondria use calcium to signal, and the number one thing that affects calcium is electromagnetic radiation. That is studied by Martin Paul at the University of Seattle. Calcium moves out of membranes when there's an electromagnetic field present. And so if you're bathing in EMF, you're creating toxicity through calcium, and it causes cell death, and it breaks the mitochondrial respiration chain. That's why EMF is so damaging to us, and why it's the most insidious thing that the governments, or whoever you want to blame it on, have allowed into our environment. And it's up to us to mitigate that as much as possible. And it's as simple as turning off the router, turning off your phone, and turning off the circuits. It's not expensive. It's real easy to do it. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Do you have a minute for questions if anyone has questions?
Absolutely, yeah. I've got 10 minutes, no problem.
Questions or? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was great. I have a question. For vitamin D, you said level greater than 60?
Yeah, mine was 100 the last time I checked it. But it takes a bit of time to build that up. When you start using the sun, like start from like sunrise, 7 in the morning, and you'll feel when the UV comes out at like 9 a.m. in Costa Rica. I mean, it's already hot, and you'll notice that your body will be a bit oppressed by that, but just treat it like you would anything else. Increase your exposure by like 5-10 minutes every few days, and your melanin in your skin will start to change, and you'll notice that you can handle more and more and more. It should take about 4 to 6 weeks for you to be able to stay out till like 10, 11 a.m. in Costa Rica, and then another sort of 3-4 weeks for you to stay out. And right now I can lay out easily in the midday sun in Mexico, UV of 11, and it feels amazing.
What? Oh, time remaining, 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah, we got 1 minute, apparently.
Well, yeah, I think that's it. I'm really grateful for this chat, and yeah, The doctor's name is Jack Cruz. Yeah.
If you want, I'll just send you like my email, and any of you can email me whenever you want, and I'll share all the studies and links and videos and stuff. You can deep dive into it, and if you have any questions, you can just email me and I'll get back to you whenever.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Sean.
No problem. Thank you. Good luck, guys. Bye bye.